As you know, oh, yes. Thank you. As you know, this meeting is being recorded. Please be advised that your image and voice will be captured and recorded during the video conference. Your participation in this video conference equals consent to be recorded. Would you mind hitting the...
That'll go away.
Oh, it'll go away in 12 more seconds. All right, awesome. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's take a look at our...
agenda.
That's a beautiful agenda. I'm going to give it... Okay, there we go. So let me run through our agenda real quick. We will proceed with the roll call in a minute. I can already tell we're going to be at a quorum as soon as we get Rosalind back. We have meeting minutes from July 23rd to approve. And then we're going to have a quick discussion about a number of organizational changes happening here at ESD. We are joined by Martin McMurray, our rising interim commissioner, which I'll explain in a minute. And then we will have a very short office update from the ASWS office and the Workforce Services Division. We then have our report that will be ready for discussion and final approval of the substance of the report. We will have lunch coming in, some more box lunches like last time. Yummy stuff. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what we want the next 2 years to look like. Okay. And have a good discussion about where we've come from, where we want to be going. So that is where we'll head. We'll do public comment, go to the order. We will be out of here by 3, get everybody back on the road to where they need to get to.
All right. Race each other on the road.
Yes, all you folks who are going to race each other, so that's great. All right, so Ms. Vicky, would you please?
Should we just go around and introduce ourselves?
We absolutely can. Vicky, can you pull a roll call from introductions?
Because I don't know everybody.
Yes, I absolutely can.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will go ahead and start. Joy Adams, Deputy Director for Employment System Policy and Integrity Committee. And why don't I go this way?
Ismaila Maidadi, I go by age, Director of the Workforce Services Division.
Martin McMurray, currently the interim commissioner. This is temporary. My other day job, Chief Operating Officer. So it's really an honor to be here as well.
Got opinions or something?
Caitlin Gates, Deputy Policy Director at Labor and Industries.
Ariel K. Bartow, part of ESC's performance team.
I'm Christine White with the Northwest Justice Project.
Michelle Besso with Northwest Justice Project.
I'm Jerry Nelson. I support the Commissioner's Office here.
Ignacio Marquez with the Washington State Department of Agriculture.
Alberto Isordia, ESD Workforce Services Assistant Director.
John Devaney, Washington State Tree Fruit Association.
Arturo Espinoza, State Monitor Advocate, Employment Security.
I'm Caroline Cachetto. I'm with Community to Community. I'm Rosalinda Guillen, Community to Community.
Excellent. Mike.
Mike Kempler, Washington Growers League.
Fantastic. Why don't we go through staff, Bertha?
Good morning, Bertha Clayton, Director of ASWS. Thank you for the flexibility to allow me to appear virtually today. I have a middle schooler and a kindergartner that start school next week, and orientations for that were yesterday and today. So I'm right in the thick of parenting, but happy to be here.
Excellent. And Tim?
Thank you for the flexibility as well. I'm Tim Probst, the Employment Service and Economic Inclusion Manager for ESD.
Excellent. And I will also note, I'm not going to make them all introduce themselves, but we have many staff from the ASWS teams on, and they can introduce themselves in the meeting chat. So, all right. Okay, so Vicki, I believe we have a quorum. Am I correct?
We do have a quorum, Joy.
Excellent. One question for the room here. Can y'all hear the board okay, or do we need to turn it up a touch?
Let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. That'll be good. All right, then let's pull up the meeting minutes, please. Committee members, you received a copy of the meeting minutes for your review. This is from our meeting of July 23rd. Would there be any, I'll get into it in just a second. Would there be any need for edits, or I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Mike Kempler. I was in attendance for the majority of the meeting.
Okay. Does that mean you approve? Oh,
He's saying
got it. Thank you. Vicky, can you make that change on your copy?
I can.
Awesome, thank you. With that edit, Mike, would you like to give me a motion to approve?
Yes, I would. I move to
Excellent.
the July 23rd minutes as presented.
May I have a second?
I'll second the amended minutes.
All right, John and Delia both. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Our minutes are approved. Thank you so much. Okay, let's talk about some of the ESD organizational changes. Even from when we put this onto the agenda, there's been more. So we'll go ahead and run down through quite a number of them. First off, you see my title has changed from deputy director. I am pleased to step back into that role. We are now being led by a wonderful lady named Leica Fernandez, who we will try and arrange an introduction in the near future. But the group is growing and we are strengthening in that way. That is one of the changes. The other change, as you heard, Cami Feek is going to be taking an interim director position at our Department of Enterprise Services at the request of the governor. Now, this is interim. It is temporary. She is insistent she is coming back, and she is close enough, just down the street, that we will go over and fetch her if it takes too long. Okay. In her absence, our Chief Operating Officer, Martin McMurray, is going to be stepping into the interim commissioner position, and we also will be joined by a new chief of staff. But I wanted to bring Martin in to have a moment to meet with you all. So do you want to take a minute?
I do. Thank you, Joy. Hey, nice to meet you all. I've actually been meaning to come join this advisory committee for some time, so thanks for having me. It's an honor. It's an honor. Yeah, what a trip. You know, Cami is a dear, dear friend of mine and my mentor. And so this all kind of happened quick. Third week of July, we get a call from the governor's office saying, hey, we're needing to make some changes at the Department of Enterprise Services. Cami, would you do us the honor of taking that helm? And, you know, it's hard to say no to that, right? It's duty and service, right? And it also shows all of us the faith that the governor has in Cami. They go back a bit, right? And Cami has a proven track record of really transforming organizations for the better. And so after a minor freak out, we calmed down and we thought through this, and we sort of said yes to this because the governor's office heard us that it's important to us that this is temporary. Cami is a transformational leader. She's dearly beloved here in ESD. In part, I came to this department last year to join her team because of her. I also have my own personal story. I grew up here. It's really great to see some familiar faces. I literally grew up with the work that we do, particularly in WorkSource. My father worked here in the 80s and 90s. So as a kid, I saw veterans getting served. I saw migrant seasonal farm workers getting served, people without homes getting served out of this agency. So this is part of my DNA. And so it's going to be months, not weeks, is our guess, because with Matt Jones, the director of Enterprise Services, stepping down, it was important that there was stability, right? Signal to not only DES, but here at ESD, that yes, we use the words temporary, but what isn't temporary is our commitment to both agencies, their cultures in this transition, right? So a little bit about what I do in this space. You know, Chief Operating Officer essentially means all of the internal operations, so finance, budget, HR, facilities, but I also serve as Cami's number 2 in many spaces. So her and I share a lot of the policy initiatives that we're involved in. Just meeting with the workforce board So even in that role, I was engaged in those spaces and places, and it's just going to be a little different as interim. I'm lucky, really lucky, that we have such an incredible team here who believe and are invested in what we do here in the Employment Security Department. And also Cami charted a pretty clear course for us. We have a pretty robust strategic plan with initiatives and check marks. That is there as a visual reminder of what we do as an executive team in this room. There are over 100 projects that stem from these three goals with project managers, communications teams, IT teams executing our plan. I go into that detail because the message in this sort of temporary interim role is one of, I quote, we know what to do. We know where to go. We have a job to do. And we also acknowledge within this framework, there are changes. I mean, Joy just talked about a couple. Obviously, I'm serving as interim. And we are agile, nimble, because there's crises that we all face in our organizations and certainly ESD. But what's important is what's behind us in the mission and vision, that even with these changes, our sort of throughput is sacrosanct. We have a mission. And so we are really looking forward to the day when Cami comes back. And we want to keep that seat warm and ready to go. So it's really nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Awesome. And then the other big change that we emailed you about earlier this week. So the ASWS office has lived within Employment System Policy and Integrity and its predecessor names since its inception in 2018. As of October 1 of this year, that office is going to move to Workforce Services Division under Ish and Alberto. There's a number of reasons for this change. This has been one of those where that office could really live in either division very, very well. And as we were establishing the rules, the process, the fact that we were into doing compliance work and separating from migrant seasonal farm work service, it made sense to live in ESPI. As we focus more on not commingling, not consolidating, what's the word I want? Bringing together.
Integrated services.
Thank you, integrating. Sorry, words leave my head at the wrong time. But as we focus on integrating how we're serving all of our customers better, we made the decision to make this move. So we are finishing out the program year, which runs through September 30th in the current organization. October 1, the office will move. It will remain basically still with Bertha. The team remains entirely intact, and they will be moving over under Alberto, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that is how the change will go. And I would invite you and Alberto to speak a little bit about anything you want to add to that.
Thank you very much, Joy. The ASWS team is just fantastic. With really amazing team, amazing outcomes, great representatives for our agency out there serving Washingtonians, whether that's farm workers or farmers. And we're really excited to work with them more closely. As an agency that brings all of our agriculture serving team members into one place, right? Because half was in WSD before and half in ESPI. That's how we were set up. So with this change here, we're really doing a concerted effort to have the teams all be together in one place so that we can work better together in serving Washingtonians. At the end of the day, this is what it's about. Alberto?
Yeah, and I'm really excited. Obviously, work really well with Bertha and the team. Know many of those individuals and have been involved with this work going back even to when this proposal was going through the legislature. So I'm really excited to be more involved. I've been very involved in the past and enjoyed working with the team. So I'm looking forward to that. And operationally, a lot of the programs that run through central office that we provide guidance to the field report to me directly. But really allowing us to, I think, be more stealthy in the way we work together as well, right? There's also, and again, words, right? But I think about even just the more minute things that we work on, like, for example, with the wildfires this week, we just sent a message saying, hey, make sure we get air cabin filters updated in our vehicles when you're doing outreach. Normally I send that communication within our division. Don't always think about other divisions, right? And so them being housed with us, when we issue communication, they're part of that communication and it happens more quickly, not having to think about it later. Oh yeah, I need to send it to another division as well. So it's just a very minor example of how I think structurally this is going to help.
So that is, I think, the rundown of all the organizational changes in the last few weeks. Any others I'm forgetting? Does anybody have comments or discussion or questions about this?
So where, I'm just trying to think, where is the state monitor advocate? Where are you?
So if the state monitor, oh, sorry, I'll let you respond first. Bad habit.
I'm still separate. I'm still reporting now to Martin. So that's where I stand there.
So the monitor advocate always reported to the commissioner or somebody in the commissioner's office, not to ASWS or WST in that role.
Just a question, internal question. Does doing this achieve any efficiencies? Does it disrupt any budgeting allocations for support staff functions by moving from one division to another?
It does not disrupt anything. I think there will be some efficiencies, though.
There will be many efficiencies. So currently at ESD, the only division really that provides services in person outside of ASWS is the Workforce Services Division. So we manage all the team members in the workforce centers in 32 different offices around the state, the large offices. We oversee 13 different programs, MSFW being one of them, and care of others, obviously. But we have job for veterans, state grant programs, working price, which is employment services, Trade Act, Workforce, BFED, strategies for success. So we have a really robust teams and regional leadership all around the state. And bringing this team here, really, we are going to learn from them and learn how we can do things better from their lenses. We're also going to get the benefit and advantages of having that large team with all the knowledge is needed to support them. On the funding side, it may not impact the allocation and all that. However, one way that we approach the work differently because we have operations is we do look across all our fund sources to see if we can gain efficiencies. So Alberto and his team oversees all that part of the work. We also try to identify competitive grants that can supplement the work across all those 13 programs. And that's something we'll be doing actively for the ASWS team as well.
I'll add this to goal 3, sort of a broader macro frame and for our department, it's this notion of integrated holistic service delivery. So we're trying to take steps of like, how are we providing services to employers and workers in the state, doing it in more efficient ways.
Just a question, I guess, and it's just sort of a comment. I think one reason, I mean, it makes a lot of sense operationally, and the only thing is, I think one reason it initially went into policy was that to have some independence, it has a slightly different mission.
It does.
And so anyway, I just wondered how that is affected.
Will that change? I do not think that independence and that different mission is going to change in the near term. There are different roles. There's like the statutory role for the ASWS compliance team. There is the federal statutory role for MSFW. They have slightly different audiences, but they do very, very similar work. Establishing that as its own body of work and not getting conglomerated. Wow, my word finding is weird today. Forgive me if I'm using really weird words. Absorb. Thank you. That's another good one. Was one of the concerns of why we made the choice to have it in ESPI at first. This office is well established. Their scope of work is well established. There's no longer, in my mind, in Ish's mind, in Martin's mind, that concern that there will be undue meddling with each other, and that work can be separately articulated as the teams move forward together. So and also this committee will remain. Okay, this committee is not going away as any part of that. I should probably address that as well. Ish and I have talked about how we would move forward in this space. And what we have decided is that we are going to co-lead this committee through the meeting in January, which is the end of your cycle. Okay. From that point forward, Ish will take over chairmanship of the committee in this space and be the designated ESD person on the committee. But that gives us time to work through some of these questions that come up. But this committee will still be around to keep us honest on that aspect, to help advise in how we are doing well at integrating the work and maintaining the separate portfolios in a good and coherent way. So, great question. Thank you.
I think it's a great move. I think it makes sense. Because I think one of the things that we struggled with, the committee's job is really to kind of provide guidance or ask questions from the ASWS team. But it was only a portion of what really WorkSource was supposed to be doing. And that is, first of all, getting the workers to the employers and getting the workers to the employers, or vice versa, whatever I just said. But anyway, you know what I mean. And it was just that piece that was missing. That was like, well, ASWS can't do all that work because you really have to rely on WorkSource to do that work. And so it makes more sense. Now, the only question I have is now the committee now has more to recommend and say, what about WorkSource? Where's WorkSource in all of this? Where's your how are vets included? How are, what's the workforce program? How are they included in all this? So, I think it was a missing part. WorkSource was the missing part.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and especially I think the committee's focus on things like domestic recruitment and serving all of our customers in this space is pretty much what kind of tipped the scales. And so that became part of the decision this time. All right.
Commissioner, do you have a meeting?
I do have to run, y'all, but it's a pleasure meeting you all. And I'll see you soon.
Thanks much.
All right. Take care.
Okay. So I think we have covered all the changes.
Well, now that the commission is gone.
Now the commission's gone.
Yeah, give us the real scoop.
No, that's not.
For real. This is the real scoop. There is no hidden agenda here. There's nothing being held back. This was one of those things that could have gone out of the way for the past few years.
Yeah.
And now's the right time to make this decision. Okay.
This will really be exceptional. I can't wait. Everything that you just articulated, domestic recruitment, our outreach efforts, placement, all those things, are things that we know that we need to continue to improve. And working closely with the various team and getting the advice from this group will be really instrumental.
All right. And with that, let's go ahead into our office updates. We're going to keep them abbreviated so we have plenty of time to talk about the report. But Bertha, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. We're going to keep it abbreviated just because we've got for today, including our most important objective, which is approving the 2026 ASWS legislative report. We just met about 30 days ago. So this data, you got last month's iteration of it pretty recently. But we just wanted to give you an update on some other things that are developing. So if you can move to the next slide, please. On the federal side, on August 3rd, the ETA published a federal register notice updating the H-2A hourly adverse effect wage rates, otherwise known as the AWAR, for all non-range occupations. So this was a notice that impacted all states, but I specifically put Washington's information on here more SOC codes than just these big five that we refer to. Big five are like the most commonly used in the H2A space, but other SOC codes were impacted as well. But for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to focus on the big five, which are the SOC codes we most usually see. So our AWR now is well, actually, you know what, Petra, I want to make sure that I'm stating all of this correctly. So Petra is standing by to jump in and likely could explain this better than I can. But the bottom line is that our AWR went up, but there is a nuance because of now the skill 1 and skill 2 levels. So Petra, do you want to take it from here?
Good morning, everyone. Absolutely, Bertha. The AWR is for the skill level 1 remains at $17.13. That's the Washington minimum wage. So no workers should be making less than the $17.13. When it comes to the skill level 2, this means, let me go back just a bit. Skill level 1 means anybody that is requested to have 0 to 2 months experience or no experience to 2 months in the job order, they will get paid $17.13. And for skill level 2, that went up on August 3rd, and they will be paid $19.62. Now, if you look at this table here, the red color, it changes for the H2A workers because of the housing adjustment or the H2A adverse adjustment. So those skill level 2 workers, instead of getting paid the $19.62, they will get paid $17.18. Thank you, Bertha.
Thank you. And Petra, can you, I don't know if we have this data readily available, but can you comment on this year, the proportion of job orders that are skill level 1 versus skill level 2?
I don't have the exact numbers, but it's a 40-50% of some of the applications requesting the 0 to 2 months. 2 months is about 50% of the applications that we have right now. So some of the employers are requesting the more experience, which is three months of experience.
Thank you. And keep in mind that the rule states that they take effect as of the date they were published, which is August 3rd. So even for job orders that are currently active and that are, being advertised in our work source centers, the applicable wage from August 3rd, at least the AWR, is the 1713 moving forward. So even if for all new applications, it's that rate, and then also for the ones in progress. Are there any questions? And I'm not able to see the room, so just please feel free to speak up.
Caitlin has a question.
Yeah, this actually, we were discussing this at one of our internal meetings, and there was a question on who, if anyone is kind of confirming whether or not applicants are actually skill level 1 or skill level 2. Is that something that they provide when they do the applications?
Petra, would you like to take that? It's based on the position, not the person. But Petra, do you want to expound on that?
Yes. So let me give you an example. So if an employer says on the base wages that they're going to pay $17.13, but they put that they want 3 months of experience or 4 or 5 or anything above that, then we will contact the employer with a notice of deficiency or an NOD, how we call it, and we will say, do you mean you want this many months of experience? If they say yes, then we tell them that they have to pay the skill level 2 based on the information they have in the application. If they say, $17 or $19.62, but they are saying, I want 0 months of experience, then they can pay more. But if they are not requesting the 0 or to 2 months, they cannot pay, excuse me, more than the 3 months, they cannot pay the 1713.
Thank you. There's a question over here. Yeah, I just wanted clarification a little bit more on, when you talked about skill level 2, there was a wage of 19 something given out, and then I heard something about housing, and then that the wage then comes down to $17 and a few cents. Could you repeat that?
Correct. So, oh, sorry, Petra, I'll try and maybe jump in to fact check me in case I get this wrong. So, this scheme is based on the new rule that came out, I think, at the beginning of this year, introducing this skill level 1, skill level 2, and we will get specific data from Washington regarding the proportion of applications this year that were asking for skill level 1, skill level 2. Nationally, what I've heard OFLC quote is that their data shows that, or I don't know if it was a projection or if this was a few months ago, but that about 90% of job orders were requesting skill level 1 and only 10% were requesting skill level 2. So there's these separate categories. These are the AWORs for the US workers. And then the AWOR for the H-2A worker is going to reflect that adverse compensation adjustment. The federal government really doesn't want anybody to call this a housing deduction, even though that is essentially what it is. It's basically a deduction on wages only for H-2A workers, whether they are actually utilizing the housing or not, with the intent, as I understand it, to kind of put H-2A workers kind of more in line or more in equity with U.S. workers. So the floor, of course, is always the state minimum wage. And so when the AWOR is the highest applicable wage, then that's the 718. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'll think about it some more.
You know,
All right, any other
And
questions?
when this rule, and I just a comment, when this rule was first announced, our compliance team, we thought about, okay, how are we going to verify post certification whether that job that's being performed actually requires 3 months experience, and really that it leaves, in my opinion, on the compliance side, because that analysis is done at filing pre-certification. And like Petra said, we're very keen, and we've been trained to be very keen by OFLC to make sure that the actual level of experience required matches the skill level that is being cited.
So the rule says the wage for skill level 2 is $19 and some cents. But then it gets lowered
For
down.
Skill level. So if you're in this column here, AWORs for U.S. workers, yes, the AWOR is 1962. U.S. workers are not subject to the $2.44 adverse compensation adjustment. So U.S. workers, in theory, how it's set up, will earn the higher wage, versus H-2A workers who are earning AWOR, depending on their skill level, but they're having to, the employer is having to adjust for the adverse compensation adjustment, which may drop them below the state minimum wage, in which case the state minimum wage will be the highest applicable wage and the wage payable.
All right. Thank you.
Can I add something really quick? So Rosalinda, So I'll give you another example. So for example, the supervisors on the scale level 2, someone that has 3 months or more of experience and the job order is requiring more than 3 months of experience, they will a US domestic worker will make $32.62, while the H2A worker will make $2.44 for the housing adjustment. So they will end up being paid $30.20 instead of the 32.64. And this is just for the one I mentioned for that SOC code of the supervisors. But for example, on the big five that we're showing here, Washington State has different minimum wages in the Seattle towards area. So no workers will make less than Washington State minimum wage depending on the area they are. And we use the 1713 because that's like most Washington, but Seattle area has a different one.
So that's a key point, regardless of the adjustments and regardless of the wages set through the AWARE calculations, nobody can be paid less than minimum wage with the adjustment or the level where it's at. Everyone is going to be minimum wage for the location where they're serving, correct?
If that is the highest applicable wage.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Juan. Ignacio, I'm bad at that.
So is it possible, I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but is it possible for a US worker to be lowered down to a 718 if they're migrating from a different state and staying in H2A housing?
No.
No.
The guidance from OFLC has been that the housing adjustment is tied to the H2A visa. So it's foreign workers only.
And the flip side is if there's an H2A worker who magically somehow had housing, they're still bound to that wage.
Correct. So you can't opt out. So for example, if you have an H2A worker who, is living with an aunt or something, they're still subject to that compensation because of the type of worker they are.
So the deduction is not tied to the actual provision of housing, it is tied to the type of worker they are.
It's tied to the visa.
Correct. Correct.
And this is just hourly. There's still the prevailing the piece rates that are still set.
Yep, that's absolutely right. We're just kind of talking about kind of the bottom end here, where the floor is going to be the state minimum wage. So the AWARE did go up, I think maybe 2%. I don't have the exact figure. But because of because of that housing adjustment, some workers, H2A workers, may be in the situation where the minimum wage, state minimum wage, is the highest applicable. Okay, so if you go to OFLC's website, you can pull up a table. It won't be as nice as this one. This is one that was created by our staff, and you can look at all the states, kind of see what happened across the country. But it's a little hairy, in my opinion. Our staff created this one, and feel free to use this slide for your own purposes as you explain this to others. Okay, next slide, please. Couple of other things we wanted to update the committee on. Enforcement agency coordination. We're continuing to coordinate with our federal and state partners when it comes to complaint and apparent violation coordination. That has been pretty business as usual, even though USDOL wage and hour has had some staffing challenges over the last year. My understanding is that they have approval to hire, I think, 4 more investigators in the Washington, Alaska region, which is directed by Tom Silva. We had a case, you may have seen it, in a news release, although I'm not sure if it came out as an official wage and hour news release where ASWS referred a apparent violation and worker complaint to Wage and Hour, and within days of that referral, U.S. Steel Wage and Hour Division had obtained a restraining order from the Eastern District in Washington, a federal restraining order, and we have been coordinating with them in confirming that workers have been relocated to other certified housing. Um, I, the, it's public information. I won't go into details here about that, but that was a really good example of our agencies coordinating together and getting immediate relief to those workers. And we're also working with our partners at LNI on that same case regarding other issues. We're also going into our busy kind of peak season for our foreign labor certification work. Usually that starts around November 1st, peaks at about January, and we have a couple other peaks in March and April. As per this year, ASWS staff, we've been trained by both LNI and DOH in doing the pre-certification housing inspections for specifically range housing. This is housing that is usually a RV used by sheep herders or used in job orders where there's less than 9 occupants. And so we're doing that again. We had a good experience last year. The transition was pretty good. We were able to get out there faster. ASWS ESD were not providing a state housing license for those units because we don't have that capability in our rules. We're doing that inspection work and that certification work under our foreign labor certification CFRs, and so we're doing that. We have about between 10 and 12 of these, so it's not a huge share of our work, but it's something that we've brought in-house completely. We are also in the process of scheduling our end of season training with our partner agencies, LNI, DOH, and Washington State Department of Agriculture. This was the first year that we implemented our field check coordination agreement that was drafted at the directive of the JLARC study. And we've had some coordinated field checks, and we've had some challenges and kind of some bumps in implementation, as we absolutely expected, being the first year rolling this out. So we are in together at the end of the season to kind of talk about doing a postmortem of this season and talking about how we're going to do things differently next season. We are on the cusp of an ASWS webpage. We're so close. It's going to be really great resource. It's going to be great that we have finally an online presence where the audience is both workers, U.S. domestic workers, and also employers who are thinking about participating in the H-2A program, or those that want more support in their compliance in the program. So that will be coming soon, and we will share the link once it's live. And as you heard earlier, we have an exciting transition. As of October 1st, we will be part of the Workforce Services Division family. And so our team was notified of that this week. So we are in very early transition planning, but we're looking forward to shining our light in a new division. So we're excited about that. Any questions?
Question.
Yes,
I
sir.
remember in the past, Rosalinda, I think, brought up this issue around H-2A housing and wildfires. And I was just looking at that. It's like, especially in central Washington, there's been several fires in ranges and ridges where I believe there could be some sheep herders. I don't know, is Department of Health or LNI sort of monitoring that to see I guess I could ask about that DOH.
Bertha, do we know anything about that?
Not that I know of.
So are you asking in
When
terms
you-
of,
I mean, I guess, first of all, do we know where they're located? I mean, I just seen like, several fires where they're just like, the ridges are gone. And I just wonder about those sheep herders out there in RVs or whatever they're living in. Whether there's
Yeah,
any
that-
kind
I
of,
don't think there's any agency that has any monitoring of where they are. I think the only ones who know where they're placed are the employers, the sheep ranchers.
I'm assuming they have,
Because when they do the certification, it's usually on site at well, I don't know, it may be different now that ESD is doing it, but my understanding is they look at the housing before the workers head up to the hills. They usually certify, so you know how in the spring during lambing, everybody's in at the ranch. And it's at that point that they inspect the housing.
okay.
And then with summer, they get moved up into the hills. But I don't think anybody knows where they are other than the employer. It's a
Just a
really,
follow-up question on that then. Do we currently require that they let us know if they have people impacted by fires or housing? Or is that something we can add?
it's a really good question.
Because
I don't
that's
think
something we should know.
I know, I think it's a really good
In
question.
general, there has been anywhere have I seen anything that has to do with workers in that whole side of the state in relation to the fires and smoke. So that was one of the questions I was gonna bring up. It's like, it's one of the things we've been keep bringing up. It's like, what happens? How do we know where the workers are at any particular time in these types of incidents, both pandemics, but then climate related? And there's nothing. So it's like there's no infrastructure yet that I can see where that is just an automatic report somewhere, which I think should be coming to this committee from somewhere.
I know the H2A applications for tree fruit, most of other ones, it specifies where the housing is located.
Right,
But
but
I was
if
just
anyone's
wondering about
looking
rate.
at what housing is in the path of that fire.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole.
Or even such things as there is no labor housing within the fire, pathway or area.
So
like-
just to
You
give a
say
little bit
something-
more,
Yeah.
just to give a little bit more information. So our inspections are pre-occupancy, pre-housing certification inspections. So the units are not occupied, and usually the inspections are done at a location owned by the employer, right, before they go out on the range. And the timing of that has to be, when they've been dewinterized, and because we need to test all the systems. The rules do not require this SWA to have the exact location of where the range housing is located at any given moment. These units are mobile, and the nature of these units is that they will be moved, across the range. That's the nature of this work. So I understand the concern, and it's a good concern, but there's not any SWA obligation to track the coordinates of those mobile units once they're in service.
Right. That said, also being involved in the emergency management workflows coming through this, I can see where there's the gaps for sure. Let's take this as an item
I was
to.
talking
Beyond the range worker, just in
Right,
general.
I know,
Just in
there's
general,
two
yeah,
different things.
yeah.
I think the range worker, there's two different questions.
Yeah.
But the range worker one is a really good one about
Yeah.
like,
It absolutely is, but I have
what
a
plan, even just asking the employer, like,
Yeah,
what's your plan to notify them if there is a
Yes.
fire, yeah. And so, I mean, things have just become so much worse. The fire situation has just become so much worse in the last few years. Yeah.
So I do think that this would be a good topic for us to dive into at a future meeting.
Yeah.
With emergency management folks and all the agencies, and we can do some pre-work with the agencies ahead of that. I also don't think we're gonna get it on the September agenda because emergency management is kind of overwhelmed at the moment with half the state being on fire, but let's see if we can't get that managed
October should
before
be, October should be good
somewhere
because the
before
fire
the-
season tends to end around September
Yeah.
or October when we get the rains back. So by October, I think we should be, hopefully by October, we're in a good place as a state.
Fun fact, Isha's wife is a subject matter expert in that space, and
And then the other question that Rosalinda has, right, is just the overlay, the fire overlay with
labor in general.
labor housing.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I mean, the smoke, it's the fire itself and then the smoke in the work area.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at it is not even through an H2A lens. So obviously we work, so I'm looking at it through like our customers we serve. If we have customers that may be impacted by whether that's flooding, a fire, or something like that, we need a notification system in place to know when that happens so that we can engage the necessary people to support them. So that's the lens through which I'm looking at this. If we know we have customers in various places, and if there's a fire, there needs to be a notification system of some sort to let us know that has taken place.
Could we get, in addition to the emergency management side, could we get L&I DOSH update? Because it is a reasonably foreseeable risk. It should be in a lot of people's emergency plans with housing operators and employers. So it may be covered there rather than it. As an emergency.
That's actually
right.
I mean, the other part, we have meetings. On this. But part of, the situation in terms of how emergency state is, when we invite the department, they tell us it's locally controlled. And so the counties are in charge of this. And so, for example, the employers probably are going to be notified by the county.
Communicate directly with them within the county to be able to know what stage are we at, when we have to evacuate. I mean, we're in close connection with everybody within that community. To make sure.
But the thing is, there's no close connection with labor, with the workers.
Well, that's
There's no representation in any kind even at the county. That's one of the issues that happened with the flooding in Skagit County. The emergency management at the county level, there's no even, we're not even on the radar. It's like what's happening with the workers in that area that's being flooded or that's on fire. And I think, how we take leadership, I know it's at the county level, but there's got to be a way at the state level here to take leadership and begin to shift that narrative and that structure of how farm workers are actually considered in these climate crises. Because we don't have the capacity, organizations at the local level, to get to the workers fast enough sometimes. And if the employers already know, or they have a bigger capacity, what I would like to say is like, how can we work together to ensure it seems like in some of especially the major flooding in our area, it was a farm worker that died in Whatcom County. We don't want to see that happening in other counties with climate crisis. So I don't know. I just want to make sure if we're going to talk about this, we should work together on it. The workers, and especially when there's an organization with leadership, with capacity like the union, that they should be present, represented.
But I guess my suggestion would be to bring the right people to the table.
Yes, I agree.
And so, which
Workers are the right people.
the last, I guess, flag I ran up this poll was language access, because the counties were not even sending notifications to people's languages at that time, which that has changed. But we passed a law.
Or the language was too complicated, even in their own language.
Because we passed a law requiring the counties to do that. And so that was the last major fires we had. 10 years ago or so. And so I'm just trying to go with the history of this in terms of how I think we're gonna have to go about it. And if it's gonna be required that it comes to ESD, then it's gonna require, okay, we have to put it somewhere where who gets notified and who's gonna have to respond accordingly. Emergency management doesn't have the capacity
county
to
level.
respond. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
but-
Let's not wait for people to die. To make it happen.
These are all very good points, and I can see exactly where the gap is. I'm just in my head pulling these together. Do want to dive into this because you're right. We will learn from every single disaster that happens. Last time it was language access. We're learning to improve our outreach. We're learning to make quicker contact. This is a gap that we need to fill now. So this is great. We will set it up. We'll bring the right people to include. Some of it is going to be the State Emergency Operations Center to describe what their process is and where we see that connect in. But we will take that forward for a meeting in the near future.
And I can follow up with our DOPS team to kind of see what the emergency response plan requirements are for employers in that space as well. Grant.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, just my experience working with the county, and I've been part of sort of some exercises on how to deal with major disasters. And one of the things that's missing from the counties is that when we did this exercise about a major disaster and I was involved, my role was representing the agriculture. And even representing agriculture at the state level, there were a lot of gaps where they were asking me questions as like, I don't have that information. I don't know how many, how much cattle is in this area, how many orchards are over here, how many food processes are over here. So like they assumed because I was the Department of Ag that I had all that information.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so when it gets down to, well, how many farm workers are here? It's like, I have no idea. Like, I don't have that information. So when we talk about getting the right people, it's like, yeah, the right agency need to be there to be able to provide that information to the county to say, yeah, Department of Health says that there's X amount of camps here, X amount of farm workers living here, X amount of people that are sheep herders over here. And there's 100 head of cattle over here. So when we're coordinating all this stuff and people need to be moved out, counties need to know that to be able to communicate that. So it's going to take the whole state to kind of figure this one out.
Great. All right.
So Joy, just kind of looking at the agenda, we still have some updates left. So I'm just wondering if you want to proceed to those, or our working lunch may be a true working lunch.
I think our working lunch may be a true working lunch, but our lunches haven't been delivered yet. So, so let's go ahead to get our Workforce Services Division update. Do we have any more for ASWS, or will it be included in the slides?
Included in the slides.
Awesome. All right. Let's switch over to WSD. Tim?
Hi, everybody. It's good to be here with you again. And Bertha, we are so looking forward to your team coming over and joining us working for Alberto and Ish at Workforce Services Division. We work so closely together already, and just having that structurally together and even more deeply integrated is going to be awesome for our customers, but also just for ourselves, because I think our teams already really enjoy working together. I wanted to mention today that Jenna Argot is out sick today, and so Chelsea Detweiler is filling in for Jenna. So Chelsea is Jenna's backup for the Migrant Seasonal Farm Worker Program, and is also in charge of the Wagner-Pizer programs for the Labor Exchange for Job Seekers and for Employer Services. Welcome, Chelsea, and maybe you can introduce yourself now.
Hi, everyone. Chelsea Detweiler here, Program Support Specialist for Wagner Pizer. And like Tim said, I'll be filling in for Jenna, so I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, and we can go to the next slide then. Okay, so these are our complaints and apparent violations, and this is starting July 1st, 2026. And you can see we've already had 10 complaints, and they are referred. Only one has been resolved so far. And we get into a little more detail in the next slide that Chelsea will take.
Yeah, so as far as the different complaint types from MSFWs, we had one health and safety complaint since July 1, 2026, and 10 were wage related.
We can go to the next slide. So for our outreach in program year 24 and 25, we've had 11 FTEs working on this. Outreach days were 1,400 in 24 and 1,438 in 25. And the total number of MSFWs, migrant seasonal farm workers, contacted has dropped a little bit in 25. So we had 25,800 plus in 24, and that dropped down to 21,600 in 25. And the following slides that you'll see, we're still serving more in the work source system than we did in 24, but we actually did reach fewer in 25. And these numbers are complete through June 30th of 2025.
So here we have a comparison of program year 2024 and 2025 for MSFWs that were contacted by the full-time outreach offices. And this was shown last meeting as well, just since it's shown complete program year 2025, not into 26 yet.
And here we have the breakdown of the same information by the part-time outreach offices. And you might remember from the last meeting that those three with the big spikes are offices that had been full-time outreach offices and then were changed at the beginning of program year 2025 to be part-time outreach offices.
I'm sorry, could I ask, I know it's a really basic question, we kind of go through this all the time, but I'm a little, program year 2025.
Yeah,
that's October 1, 2025?
No, not quite.
No. Okay.
And I'm with you. We have federal fiscal year, state fiscal year, program year, and actually we have different program years too, depending on which grant you're talking about. But all of this is going to be the July 1st through June.
So July 1st of what year? Sorry.
Yeah.
25.
So if it's a 2025 program year, it's July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2025.
2026.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I get
So
you.
this
I mean,
was
even
just
the naming
pending this,
conventions
that's
are
what I
off.
wanted.
Yeah. But thank you. That is, so when we talk about PY25, it's July 1st, 25 through June 30th, 26. So it's actually quite recent that it stated. Yeah.
Okay.
So Tim, so am I reading this correctly? Is that you served less people, less farm workers in outreach, but more people at the work source offices? Is that correct?
Yes, contacted fewer in outreach.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do we know how anecdotally what's going on? I mean, so outreach is just out there making contact with farm workers, but that's less than it was last program year.
Yes.
That's what we got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does the drop
And
have any?
what's going on is partly that we have fewer full-time outreach offices. So that's part of the reason. And then, of course, there are the headwinds we've talked about before with people having a little less trust of government institutions and some of the changes that have happened over time.
Another February, so we only track those who are outreach to by the migrant seasonal farm worker team members. In the areas where we removed a significant ag designation, we still do outreach, just as part of our workforce operation, but those numbers may not necessarily show in this anymore because it's no longer specifically MSFW outreach. They do some MSFW outreach, but they also do workforce services in general outreach. So we reduce the number of significant ag counties, centers, really, that's what we talked about, significant ag centers from 9 to 6 about a year ago. So that's reflected in these numbers here.
Yep.
There's specific criteria to name a center a significant ag center, and it's based on the percentage of customers served in that center that are MSFW.
But the FTEs was 11 in 2024 and 11 in 2025.
Yes, it is.
But it's just different offices that.
Well, what's happened is we've expanded outreach beyond just significant offices. So, so what you see is, versus it just being consolidated in those single, what we call the ag significant offices. Now it's expanded statewide. So you see fractions of FTEs basically adding up to the same number.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not fully.
Yeah.
So when we have a significant office, we are not allowed to have somebody do MSFW work and another work at the same time. By US DOL rules, there must be 100% only MSFW work, and they cannot serve customers in the center. By US DOL rules, I know it's ridiculous, they can only provide outreach outside of the center and refer people back in for services. They're not allowed to actually serve customers within the center.
Is that federal?
That's federal, yeah. We actually sought to change that. We try to do part-time MSFW in the significant offices. We're not going to the national DOL monitor. They refused it. I talked personally to the assistant secretary of ETA and US DOL about this, thinking we may get a different result. No change. So that's nationally. There's 20 states that are significant ag states, as you know, Washington is one of them. And in those states, if you have a significant office, you're not allowed to have an NSFW who's part-time or to provide services within the center.
So if there's the MSF, the migrant seasonal farm worker outreach people at WorkSource in the office at WorkSource, they have like a office.
Yeah, they're part of the WorkSource team. They work with the
right.
Yeah.
So, but they can only do very specific work.
They cannot provide services within the center. Their role is outreach to farmers and farm workers to inform them about services available and refer them back into the center where we have a labor exchange and various other program staff that can provide services.
Somehow we've got to, I don't know, there's got to be like a chart of this structure, because one of the things with farm workers is when they go into a WorkSource center, there's staff there who won't help them. And the trust level gets really, diminished. And I know with us, it's like, what are they doing? They're just there and they refuse to help the worker. But then if this is the case, that's just crazy.
Connect with me. Did you see that happening?
Yes.
Okay.
It's my job to make sure that they get served when they walk into the doors.
But he's just saying they can't.
The other neighbor that is there
Okay.
to help them,
All
they
right.
should be offering services
So why
regardless.
should come?
I actually ordered them and I haven't got them yet, but
He holds us accountable. And also it's my job and our workers also to make sure that never happens. We never want to hear that a customer.
But even our
refuse
staff needs to
services.
understand the structure so that they know to explain to a worker, when this happens, come talk to us so that we can then follow up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be happy to talk.
All right.
I think, Alberto, one thing that we can take
We're
as an
not a
action item
significant
is to
office.
develop a simple
Yeah.
one page that might even be a visual
Yes.
about even just like the full circle about clearance orders, placements, outreach, H2A, everything, so that people can just have a full visual of the life cycle of agricultural services.
That would be
that
really-
And also, you're saying the ESD staff, when they walk in, aren't.
WorkSource.
The work.
Well, we don't know. The workers go in, they don't know, we don't know. They go in, they're really upset. They want to talk to somebody, and I don't know who you know, who they're talked to, that person will say, I'm sorry, I can't help you, you know, or something like that.
That is not
And
acceptable.
it could be like, there is no other staff except for MSFW. We don't know.
Yeah.
I guess this is like kind of sparking something that we need to sit down and map it out in the work source offices where we are in Wacom Skagit and try to understand
Yeah.
that structure so that
I think
the workers will know how to get better service.
I think as an action
that
item,
could never happen for anyone, not only for MSFWs, but for nobody who walks into a work source
Right,
center
exactly.
and is looking
Yeah.
for help and needs help should be turned away like that. So yeah, I would like to follow
let's
up.
take an action item to do a workforce 101 in the
Yes.
future for this committee, where we walk
Yes.
through what does it look like, what do we do in outreach, what are the programs that serve farm workers, farmers,
And who
how
are
does the system work?
who are the staff assigned in your area?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
And we will include you in that and what the role is, the role of the monitor advocate, the role of our monitoring team, the role of the equal opportunity team, because we have 3 different teams whose role is to ensure that customers are never turned
Okay.
away. So yeah.
We just see you all as one team that's supposed to respond to us.
Exactly.
And that's how we should be. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you
guess
very
probably, is
much.
there certain requirements that the worker needs to have when they come in? Maybe that could be part of that flow.
Our role, so our labor exchange team, that team and Chelsea lead, they're talking about, our job is to serve anyone who works through that center. Now, WorkSource is not one agency, right? When you work into a WorkSource, there might actually be 10 agencies in there, but they're all WorkSource staff, right? But the labor exchange is the entry point. You walk in, they work with you, identify what you need. They can, if it's self-service, we allow you to use the computers with minimal guidance. If you need more help to get employed, we identify which program at WorkSource is best for you, and then we refer you to that program, whether that's for your adult, dislocated worker, workforce, BFED, alphabet super programs. So that's how it works in there. So the person you meet at the front is supposed to identify your needs and get you to the next level if you need individualized services. But if it's just basic services you need, that's support provided.
Even sometimes it's just asking the question, this happened to me, what do I need?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So.
Sorry, Tim, back to you. And Chelsea.
No, great conversation, and I really do want to. I'm concerned. I want to follow up on that. That should not be happening. So yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, and Chelsea's got that one.
So this is a newer format. This is going to show the MSFWs served by region. So we've got our 5 regions here, and this is starting in 2020, the beginning of the program year then in July, and it goes through this current program, or goes through June 4th of 2026, so last program year. And the cutoff for that is due to our switch in systems from E2O to WaWorks. So we're still, we weren't able to get the more current data yet from our new system. So.
Next slide.
And we will not get that new data until after November 15th, just to prepare the committee, because through that data migration, we have some work to do to get to the point where we can report out accurate numbers.
And this is the same information broken out by only the full-time outreach offices. Later, you'll see the statewide number too. And this is where we're seeing that even though there are headwinds, multiple headwinds, right? The international trade environment, the environment, and of course, the comfort level of migrant and seasonal farm workers interacting with government organizations of any kind are all challenges that could be keeping our numbers that are coming into WorkSource to be served at lower levels. And so, I mean, this is only statistics. It doesn't tell you everything, but it is somewhat encouraging to see that WorkSource is serving more migrant and seasonal farm workers now than previously. And we can go to the next one that breaks it out a different way.
So here we're showing the information from the previous slides, so totals served, but statewide. And you'll see that year over year since 2020, there has been an increase despite those other headwinds in the number of migrant and seasonal farm workers we've served in our offices.
And then the last slide. This is just one highlight. So we do clearance order training periodically. The clearance orders, of course, are the job orders for the H-2A employers to make sure that MSFW, domestic migrant and seasonal farm workers have plenty of chance to be able to be employed at an H-2A employer. And we have another pretty deep dive for all of our staff who do the clearance orders coming up. We're doing 90 minutes per day on August 24th, 28th, and 31st. And if there are any other questions, happy to take them now. That's the end of our MSFW presentation.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Any questions in the room or online? I'm not seeing any. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so Bertha is going to walk us through the legislative report that was sent out and hopefully move us toward an approval. Bertha, it is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So I said earlier, the objective today is to finalize the report draft and move forward, hopefully, with an approval of this committee to keep us on schedule for the remaining levels of review and ultimately for the report to be published and available on 1031. So what we've done since last meeting and this meeting is that we have integrated your suggestions and the areas that the committee requested that we further develop in the committee recommendation section. We also received some specific edits from committee members that we've included in the draft. You have committee members received a draft yesterday with track changes. Don't be overwhelmed. The committee, our recommendation is to focus on the committee recommendation section because really that's where we most need your voice. The report continues to have placeholders in it for year-end data, which we'll have after 10/1. And that'll be specifically like number of site visits and field checks and discontinuation of services and those types of things. So this committee can approve it with those things still pending because that data won't be available until 10/1, but we'll be able to slide it in while it's under review. The other thing that is not complete yet is an executive summary, and that's because we don't have the full body of the report finalized. But that executive summary will be developed after approval. So before we get started, if you have your device with you, please feel free to pull up the draft that we sent out yesterday. Otherwise, Vicki will put it up on the screen. And Vicki, if you could put up the piece of the draft with committee recommendations. Okay, so could you
please make that bigger?
Yeah.
Yeah, just maximize a little bit, please.
Thank you.
Perfect. And if you could go back to the top here. So we had comments from members, very good comments, I think specifically from Michelle and John, that were aimed at like, we need to develop some context before we go into these advisory committee recommendations, like what specifically is happening in 2026, what's made things different, what's made things more challenging. And so because you are a committee body, ESD, we've tried to kind of balance this out while still kind of bringing forward the context from each of the perspectives. So we could do this a couple ways. You could look on the screen, or I'm happy to read it to you. And you can just kind of sit back and listen to it and then just think about whether this strikes the tone that the committee as a whole would like to put forth. How would the committee like to proceed?
Let's see, so reading it would be great. Could you please read it out loud?
I will. Okay, so this is kind of the intro before we get to the section introduction. The last 2 years have been extraordinarily challenging for Washington's specialty crop growers and farm workers. The cost of farm production has soared in recent years, while global economic instability, trade policies, and federal immigration policies have caused instability in markets and among the Washington agricultural labor force. 2025, the Department of Homeland Security scaled up its immigration enforcement, leading to the detention and removal of immigrants and widespread fear in agricultural communities. Historical inter- and intrastate migratory patterns are shifting, and Washington farm workers seasonally employed for decades are aging out of the workforce. During the same time, Washington State Department of Labor issued major regulatory changes to the H-2A program, making program compliance both more complex and expensive, and in other cases, giving growers greater flexibility in how to use the program. Additionally, shifts in federal AWAR rates and Washington state agricultural overtime laws have resulted in substantial changes in how growers offer farm work and the reliability of seasonal earnings. Washington growers continue to rely on the H-2A program for specialty crop production, arguably displacing and discouraging U.S.-based farm workers who often feel, quote, pushed out by foreign workers. Washington growers are looking to automation and mechanization solutions to supplant labor needs. However, rising labor costs and changing consumer preferences find growers, particularly smaller growers, in a precarious and unsustainable position. The ASWS Advisory Committee collectively understands recommendations to employment security to improve the effectiveness of its recruitment process as part of the H-2A program must be presented in context of the challenges facing specialty crop production in Washington in 2026. And I suggest the committee revise that sentence and maybe make it 2 sentences. As such, the committee offers the following recommendations to employment security to improve the effectiveness of its recruitment process as part of the H-2A program. And then then you go into your 3 recommendations. Which we'll get to in a moment. But I'd like some feedback about whether that captures the correct tone, the correct balance, and whether anything glaring is not included.
So Bertha, this is Sean Devaney. That overall, I think it sounds good. The one sentence that talks about workers being pushed out, domestic workers being pushed out by H-2A workers, the fact that he used passive voicing arguably implies that the whole committee might agree with that. I think if you just attribute it to, say, some workers believe that, and then continue with that sentence, it's correct, but it attributes the statement to those making the argument.
Excellent. I think that's a good change. I'd love to hear from other members.
So wait, so Washington growers continue to rely on the H-2A program for specialty crop production. So instead of
saying arguably, say some domestic workers argue that, or something like that. So it's clear who's making that assertion. So leave that language in there, but just attribute it.
Or, yeah, I mean, we might, because I think the labor side of the house does believe that.
Yeah.
So we might want to say, as opposed to some workers.
Labor representatives.
Yeah, exactly. So that's fine. Brought into it. I didn't want to speak for you, Michelle.
No. I hear you. I'm just trying to process.
Yes.
But I understand. I do have a question. And I know in some ways it makes sense, but I'm also, when it says that Washington farm workers, seasonally employed for decades, are aging out of the workforce. I'm not sure to what, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are. I guess that's, so like, are we saying?
And they're not voluntarily.
I know. What, I mean, I just want to nuance it maybe a little bit.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What is
What
that
data,
come from?
what are we looking
I
at?
don't think that we recommended that. The reason I say that is
So-
because. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, excuse me. It came from me. It came from just setting the table basically in 2026. This is aging workforce is something that we have mentioned in prior reports. But it's not from like a data point, or it's just basically kind of generally speaking.
I think that the whole thing about aging labor force, there is, like you said, there's no data point in that, and this is an issue that we want to talk about later. The actual numbers of farm workers and like the demographics, I guess, the full demographics of the workforce, because I believe that our workforce is not aging out. I mean, we all age out of, whatever work we're doing at some point, but there's no like actual data to prove this in the farm worker community. So there's got to be another way.
So Bertha, where are you getting, I mean, I've read that too in different articles.
But where's it coming from?
Articles and labor, but my question to Bertha is, was it just somebody's comment that they expressed? Are there actual data? And to me, there's a big difference than domestic workers aging out compared to, okay, are they aging out and that's why more workers, we need to pay more workers from abroad?
Yeah.
That would be one.
I would say I've seen that data in the National Ag Worker
Yeah.
Survey that USDOL does, and that's been over repeated administrations and cycles. So Bertha, you might want to see if that's a source. It's national labor market
You just
data,
looked it up and I think
and it's not Washington specific.
One reason that I ask it is that I think people have different ideas of what aging out means.
Exactly, that's what I was trying to say.
So if you're 40 years old, are you aging out? Or are you, the person who's 40 feels like they're perfectly able to do farm work. The employer may be saying, what?
I think the NAS study talks about people aging past 65.
Okay, but that's, so I feel like the statement, and I don't know what percentage are aging out. And how much of a factor it is. I guess that's the thing is I'm sure there are people aging out because
There always are.
but there always are.
Yeah.
Is that what's causing, is that
The driving force.
yes.
Is that this for H2A worker recruitment? I also think though that there's
I don't want to throw around sort of loose.
right, because this has always been an issue that we have brought forth many times is the actual numbers of the available workforce in the farm worker work area. There is no real clear, there's no data. There's the national numbers. The way that they gather that data is like, in my opinion, it's not, what's the word? It's not
very
real,
robust,
it's
for
not
sure.
real. It's
They
like-
interview about 10
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
shocked
it's not-
when
it's
I
not-
read like the NAS data, like what
Yeah.
they do.
The
And
way
they're
that
like,
data is gathered
I
is
know.
not a complete effort or scientific effort to cover all of
And
the.
it's like anecdotally, we
Yes.
have farm workers of all ages experiencing challenges and pressures from the H2A program, which wouldn't necessarily indicate that aging out workers are the main driver of recruitment.
So I guess without there being data, I don't want to put that in as a significant.
This is too important of a report to name it, give it that much significance, in my opinion.
But there is data.
I just argued for attributing statements about, the pressures of H2A program domestic workers to the labor advocates
Right.
and the committee. We could do the same for what employers are reporting is, and reference that data is what seems to be a declining domestic workforce. That there's always going to be individuals available who don't connect with work. And so I don't want to discount anyone's individual experience, but if you're talking about national workforce level statistics, I think that it's still valid.
And I think it makes sense to attribute
I
it.
think the phenomenon
But
that
there is no
is
Washington
recognized is that kids are not replacing their parents as their parents retire.
Very true.
I think that's both for the farmer sector and also labor, some labor.
Yeah, just,
Let's just attribute it. That feels kind of like.
good, but it sounds like it was, I mean, it wasn't the grower side. It was Bertha then, yeah, so I don't, yeah,
But
I
we
mean, what,
agree with this.
I see, yeah, I see.
This
So,
is
I
well,
mean,
and
they-
this is a theme. Aging out. It's a theme that that I've seen in various uh, articles in the Seattle Times and the Yakima Herald. I mean,
But who's
if
writing
it's
those?
Right. In the New York Times, and our question is always, why is this front and center?
Anyway, sorry, I just, yeah.
I
I
will-
hear you.
Then we're looking at the.
so then I'm not advocating for keeping it. I just need to know, does the committee want to attribute it or does it want to strike it?
Bertha, I think that, I don't know if you could hear everything that's said in the room. I think there was nodding heads to keep the language, but attribute it to the employer side.
And I wonder if, I mean, and I don't wanna, if it, I just do wonder whether perhaps rather than aging out, it's just, there's been observed an aging workforce.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Aging out is a pretty, again, like, are they all over 65? I don't think so. I mean,
We're all aging now.
I know, anyway, I don't know, it's a very, to me, it's a very strong word.
I mean,
We're still here.
I mean, with that context, isn't it the right maybe is that less people, and I think less people are entering this field.
Fewer
Yeah.
new.
Right, because the people that have been there are aging out, but you always have this, okay, what's
Right.
coming in? And so domestically, like,
But
look, we can look at our kids, if they're not farm worker kids, they're not going to like, Mike said.
So if I understood your objection, Michelle, is out is the problem. So an aging agricultural workforce that is not being replaced by as many new workers entering domestically. Something
Or
like that.
by new generations. I mean, people who are settled out here who do farm work, families,
Well, of course,
their
we
kids,
keep deporting
their kids-
everybody.
And I mean, part of the
Their
reason
kids
is
aren't doing
because
farm work.
jobs aren't available because the H2A workers
Well,
are.
so this, I think attributing it and then maybe, yeah. Yeah, I think what really clicked on me when I read it was that aging out. Because again, it's everyone, it's your experience, and it's certainly that we're working with a lot of people who are wanting to continue working.
Yeah, we're seeing that.
They're not going to retirement.
I guess it's not like one blanket thing
Right,
happening,
right.
because on the labor side, we are seeing a younger workforce, that wants to continue working, that at least have an additional 15, 20 years that they want to continue working in agriculture. The farm workers in the farm worker communities we're interacting with.
But not as much as in the past, though. Right?
No, because the jobs aren't available, there's also this thing out there, it's like, they're not available, there's all these H2A workers coming in, being replacing the opportunity for the younger workforce, or
But
the,
there's, but you could also.
It's not
say
a
that
replacement of
families that
opportunity
say-
because they have priority of hiring.
That's a whole other.
Yeah, but
So,
also say that there are some families that say, I don't want you to be doing this kind of work.
sure, of
Move
course,
on to something else.
of course.
And that's why I'm here, Uriel's here. It's like, I'm not gonna continue doing this work. This is hard work. So there are those families that also,
yeah, that's always happened, I mean, it's the same on the farmer side, right?
yeah. So.
I just don't want to, it's like a blanket statement where you're talking about the domestic workforce. It's like the entire industry.
Because we're not saying a lot about them. I mean, I think that's part of it, it's like it's the one thing we're saying about the domestic workforce. Yeah,
It's an issue in agriculture in general.
Yeah, I think there's less, at all levels.
Yeah.
at all levels. So it's like, it's just saying, make it a statement saying there's less people going into this industry.
But if you look at, John and Mike, other employers, this has been an issue for decades and decades and decades and decades. I mean, the Bracero program, why didn't we bring them in? There's a lack of, domestic.
Well, we don't have,
Yeah.
we talk about our immigration program.
Right.
It doesn't give people opportunity to.
Right. I mean, so
Young people. Anyway,
so it's not a
so
phenomenon.
I would suggest that we, employers are, I think we would attribute it to employers, and if we could just say something more like, I don't know what you would want to say.
Yeah, it's hard to edit.
I know.
Yeah, if you attribute the statement saying that's what employers feel they're observing in the labor market.
Right, that employers are observing that younger generations from farm worker families are not entering farm work. At the same.
Then we have a whole other discussion about why we think that might be, but that's not an introductory analysis. Bertha, we're just talking and not giving you line edits. Are you able to take that?
No, yes, I understand this is a great discussion. I understand the point here. And I think I have enough information to do a good rewrite.
Thank you.
And we'll see that draft, right?
Yeah, well, because we're doing it all in real time. But I really appreciate it. It's really hard to have all these people edit your words.
Well, I have no emotional stake. So let's just totally just keep going. You guys are doing great.
Okay.
I will also point out that there's a whole nother level of editing that happens after we approve the substance today, the thoughts and the concepts and such, where we're going to be going through our communications department, our gov relations team. It will probably, don't we have a step where it has to go to the governor's office as well for review? There's a couple other steps. So where we still have wordsmithing to do, if we are agreed on what direction we need Bertha to edit to, you should still be able to come to an agreement and an approval. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Joy. That's true. So
is there more?
So the last paragraph of the introduction, it's just a very stringy sentence. And I just want to make sure that the committee, what is the committee trying to communicate here? Is it, and I think maybe Michelle, not that this is your stringy sentence, but I think this may be your thought here, that is the point here to communicate that the committee wants to present these recommendations in light of the context, and that there are factors that are impacting, ESD's ability, or tell me more about what maybe you meant by this.
I think actually what you put in the beginning, I don't know that we need it. I think what I was expressing is that we hadn't given any context. We hadn't given any voice to the challenges facing farm workers as but also the industry, and so I was just like, well, we need to say something about what are some of the current forces at work that we are working within. And I think you did, so I was just saying we need something about the fact that the immigration enforcement is putting tremendous pressure on the farm worker community. There are economic pressures that people are all facing, and there are economic pressures on the industry growers as well, right? And so I was just trying to say we need to say something, I think, about all that.
I think that saying it from that perspective and then not leaning heavily on one side or the other. The fact is it's one system that we're all involved in, and some of the issues relate. And I think that what I would put in and I don't have the words for it, but the last component is for the ASWS Advisory Committee collectively understands recommendations, blah, 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 to meet the mandate that we have in the statute. That there's a statute that we have, that it was written for us to work together to try to understand
what is it that's keeping domestic workers from using WorkSource and applying for these jobs that's requiring the importation of H-2A workers? And you've already addressed some today that you're doing. You're focusing more on WorkSource and opportunities for domestic workers. So I think it's like, the last sentence saying something that we're all working together to meet our mandate. And these are some of the issues that we're confronting that have changed since the day that the mandate was passed, the bill was passed. Recognizing that things are evolving even as we try to meet our original goal. That's why I think, just saying an aging workforce, like trying to, in the introductory statement, place one reason on one side only. This is a collective effort that we have. That we agreed to in the mandate, in the law. Anyway, that's what I was thinking.
Okay. I think that's an excellent point and could definitely be, could replace the wording in the last paragraph. Just, committee understands this is our charge and it's evolving, and as such, we offer the following recommendations.
Right.
Okay.
And we're committed to continue to improve conditions for both labor and the industry, something like that.
Got it. So kind of an emphasis on this is not a one and done. This is an evolving process. Okay. Okay. So are we ready to move to the first recommendation?
Yeah. When is lunch?
Yes.
Well, I was actually going to stick my head out and see if our lunches were here yet, but yes. So if anybody needs a printed copy.
6 p.m.
In the room, I have a couple more.
I think we want dinner, like a steak or something.
6 p.m. to 9 p.m. for lunch. And
wow, you have to break for lunch and go to the restaurant.
Do you folks need a break? Should we take that if there's no lunch? Yes, I will go.
Might go for a strike in
Just
this
so that-
meeting if we don't get food soon.
We will get food soon. Lunch was scheduled from 1:15 to 1:45, so I will go double check
I'm
and
just missing
see where they're at. But let's go ahead with recommendation one.
Yeah. Let's
as
knock
is
this
our-
one out.
Yes, as is our standing rule with the committee, please take care of your own comfort. If you need to step away for a minute, please feel free to.
Yep. So let's knock this one out. This one, this is a kind of a rewrite and more of a condensed version that John provided excellent comments that really kind of honed in on the kind of the objective here. So I'll read it and please let me know if this sounds okay to you. Recommendation 1, employment security should collaboratively work with the committee to identify data points and performance metrics which can inform the committee's work. Employment security should provide the following data to the committee to aid in its analysis and comment on department rulemaking, policies, implementation of RCW 50.75, and initiatives and the study of issues the committee determines requires consideration. And these are bullet points. 1, data that helps us understand whether domestic, migrant, and seasonal farm workers are being displaced by H-2A visa workers from other countries. 2, data on year-to-year retention of employment by domestic, migrant, and seasonal farm workers, including whether the same individuals are returning to work at agricultural employers year after year, and whether they are returning to work in Washington State year after year. Number 3, data showing equity in services provided to domestic farm workers and agricultural employers as compared to non-agricultural customers. The committee also seeks to understand the metrics used to track the data and also advise employment security in its development of metrics. Additionally, the committee is interested in learning more about whether employment security's processes equitably serve both U.S.-based and H-2A farm workers. So think about, is this data that you need that you need, and will having this data help you to achieve the objectives that you hope to achieve as a committee.
It seems like it fits what we talked about last meeting. And yeah,
Bertha, I would just suggest that the last additionally on that other equity metric between US and H2A farm workers be combined into the bullet point about
Yes.
equity. That there would just be
Agree.
multiple equity factors that we seek to track. The additionally at the end just bring it up in a separate place seems confusing.
I actually had that exact same thought as I was reading it. Done.
Thank you.
Mike, not to call you out, but Mike Gempler, I think you had some really good comments last time on this. Does this capture what your thoughts were at the last meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. That's recommendation 1. Do you want to move on to recommendation 2? And I can't see the group. Okay, perfect.
Waiting for lunch to get there, so it's not quite ready yet.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, let's proceed, and then maybe you'll get kind of a reprieve from this when you're eating your food. Okay, recommendation 2, and this is going to focus on the data collection that was recently added to the statute. Recommendation 2, employment security and the committee should collaboratively review data collected pursuant to RCW 50.75.060, analyzing the utility of data to the committee and evaluating whether this requirement is the best use of resources. Employment Security's current data collection metrics and quarterly data reports are located within the Agricultural and Seasonal Workforce Services Advisory Committee past meetings webpage, and then there's a link to our meeting webpage. The committee has received quarterly presentations of primarily, quote, raw data collected by Employment Security. While the agency's collection and presentation of the data complies with RCW 50.75.060, the committee has struggled to analyze the data without contextual information, some of which may not be available to Employment Security. The committee should work to analyze whether Employment Security's collection of data meets the intent of House Bill 2226 from 2024. Additionally, the committee should explore, and Vicki, if you could scroll down for me, please. The committee should explore whether changes to RCW 50.75.060 are needed, whether the data collection required by the statute is being collected through other means, and whether the resources expended to collect this data is the best use of funds, or whether the committee feels the funds could be diverted to higher priority data points. The current report to the legislator pursuant to HB 2226 only summarizes the worker wage survey methodology and does not provide any information about the results of the survey. The committee recommends that Employment Security share the worker wage data collected pursuant to HB 2226 and/or analysis of the data with the committee to the extent legally possible. The committee needs access to this information to understand the full agricultural employment picture and participate in working on solutions. And please note that this addition here that's tracked is referring to Part B of the statute, which is administered by ESD but not by ASWS. So I may recommend some type of transition here because you're making recommendations about Part A in the first part, and then you're talking about Part B in the second part.
Bertha, this is John. Right above at the end of the paragraph, right above where you have the tracked changes there.
Yep.
The language about whether the committee feels funds could be diverted. I think diverting sounds like we're going to misappropriate funds, which we're not recommending.
Okay, fair.
But I think if we said that the committee collect this data is the best use of funds, or whether the committee might recommend changes.
Okay.
Or possibly even getting away from the resources, staying with the resources instead of funds.
Yeah, resources could be better utilized. You know, we would recommend changes to better utilize these.
I wondered whether we even need them, or whether, I mean, what about just saying, and whether the resources expended to collect the data is the best use of funds? I mean, do we need to say, or whether the committee feels the funds could be, yeah, it just feels like,
Yeah,
no, or I.
well,
Okay.
I would be fine with ending it there. I think that if we just pass judgment and say, that's a waste of money, we're gonna do it anyway, because it's required by the statute. Sort of leaves open the question of whether we would proactively generate recommended changes to ask the agency to bring forward to the legislature.
Well, I think we could probably do exactly that. Whether the resources expended to collect this data is the best use of scarce resources and recommendations for adjustment or something along those lines.
I mean, one of the things I'm concerned about, I don't know if concerned is the right word, but anyway, there's a lot, when we started the committee, there was just a lot of information that we didn't have, a lot of data that we've gone through years of trying to figure out what is the data that we need to get to the clear picture. I don't want to discount the value of what is it, the bill that was passed to get the data. I feel like that was a first attempt in trying to work together to figure out exactly what data do we need. And if we can't get it from another source, which is where we want it, like you said, part A and B, how can we bring it all together so that we actually make decisions based on what's really happening and we're getting the right data. So I just want to be careful that I don't like to think about at this point to say that we want to discount the bill altogether. What was the language that we said like previously? I don't think that we're giving ourselves enough time or the bill enough time to really analyze together what is the data that we need and where is it coming from, or why can't we get it?
And those may be the changes that we need to be making. And you've been around the legislative process as well. It tends to be iterative. It tends to be that we get something established, then we have to go
Exactly. And I think I want us to take that viewpoint that we're only just beginning to really try to establish the processes of where the data is going to come from. I mean, I really like what you all are doing in like combining more staff together, to do the work. Yeah.
I was just saying, Rosalind, I didn't read this as a judgment either way on it, but an indication to the legislature that that's what we're going to be talking about over the next 2 years is how effective is this, where changes might be.
Exactly. And I don't want the legislator to think, the legislature later to think, that was a mistake to pass that bill, right? Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I think we're just getting started and trying to figure out where we're going to get this data. The prevailing wage stuff, that data is really important, and we have to figure out, I really like this addition here. The fact that we're looking at these two different parts, but there has to be a transition to get that data. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Yep, I hear you. And also, yeah, I think that's the main thing, right? I think, Michelle, maybe you added this because, there is this data that we're going to, collect and we're going to get. I mean, not we ASWS, but we ESD, and that data has not been reported to the committee. And so I think this recommendation is, and this is kind of staff suggested, it really leans on, the part A, which is what ASWS must collect, that has, just kind of what we've learned from the implementation of it is that it may not get you to where you're wanting to be. And in the meantime, we're having to expend resources doing it. So this section then, should we distinguish more between part A and part B of the house?
Yeah, that probably takes and that might be something that could be done in post work, in terms of having a little subheading or something.
We can certainly make
subheading of part B or the other. I don't know if this just a total typographical thing. Should we be consistent in referring to the RCW 5075-060 or House Bill 2226. In other words, we refer to it both ways, so just
There's value in referring to both.
Okay.
The bill tells us what to go back to look at the intent, right? And when it was passed with that 2024 marker. But the RCW site is what we will be referring to moving forward, because that's the RCW site that is binding to us at this moment. And if we were to make changes, we wouldn't be amending 2226 from a previous biennium. We would be writing a new rule, writing a new bill,
right,
making a new determination of some sort.
You're right, you only use the bill number in reference to intent.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So we should definitely have that as our reference, but the RCW itself lives on its own.
Okay.
Did I get that right, Lawyer Bertha?
That was exactly the intent there, that the statute doesn't tell us why, right? Or doesn't kind of give us a legislative history, but the bill does.
Gotcha. All right.
Okay, so and then also just kind of as a quick update, I have 2 members of my staff I met with yesterday who have excellent ideas just in kind of what we, without any committee changes yet to this statute, about how we're going to better collect this in our next growing season. So we're already working on things on our end, but yeah, so this I think we're all in agreement that this needs to get better. Okay, so let's move on to recommendation 3, because really this is the last part. And then please, Tim, please kind of be on deck here, because I don't want to veer into your lane. But with your permission, I'll read it out and you can kind of jump in if there's something in the discussion that you need to answer.
I just gave a thumbs up and realized you couldn't see it, so thumbs up.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks, Tim. All right, recommendation 3. The committee should work to focus its work in the next 2 years on specific strategies employment security can use to improve farm worker recruitment. 2 potential strategies include, number 1, overcoming structural barriers to recommendations, i.e. employer name suppression waiver denial. Previously, this committee made specific recommendations to employment security with the goal of overcoming the systemic barriers which impact U.S.-based farm workers' ability to apply for and be hired to H-2A job orders. One previously identified barrier is USDOL's requirement that the SWA suppress the name of the employer in its labor exchange system. As such, the name of the employer is not known to the U.S.-based applicant using Employment Security's labor exchange system. In 2021 and 2024, Employment Security requested a waiver of this requirement from USDOL. However, the waiver requests were both denied. The committee recognizes the structural barriers, often regulatory, that employment security and U.S.-based applicants navigate are often out of employment security's control. However, the committee recommends employment security continue to identify systemic barriers and communicate with the committee regarding potential strategies to overcome or mitigate their impacts. Number 2, education and monitoring of employer compliance.
Let's hold up just a second, Bertha, and let's deal with these.
Take them one
What
by
if
one.
Yeah.
You're getting one potential tweak. I don't know what you guys think. It's just when we say the title is overcoming structural barriers to recommendations, which seems really limited. It's like you're only looking at the structural barriers to like previous recommendations, or as opposed to just overcoming structural barriers to making improvements or to, I don't know, it just felt like limiting. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So possibly something like overcoming structural barriers to recommendations and potential solutions.
Yeah. Yeah, the potential solution. Yeah.
Or maybe just
Those are
overcoming
one-edged.
structural barriers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Overcoming structural barriers, period.
Yeah.
I know. Fewer words, right?
I would just point out that the initial language under recommendation 3 is more broad, so around all strategies we can use that would be effective. And then it's listing these out not as recommendations, but as potential strategies. And I think number one then is saying, well, let's go back to the things we already recommended that haven't been implemented for particular reasons that might be fixable. But I don't think it limits us because the whole recommendation starts with globally strategies that would be effective. Maybe that needs to be made more
Say
clear.
that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
you're right, because when you have bullet points, you go right to those.
Right, I
And-
think that's right.
Yeah, so maybe we could highlight that the recommendation is the initial sentence there, Bertha. And then the bullet points are really, illustrative examples.
It's also clear that in a legislative report, it is perfectly okay to beat them upside the head with every tool you have. Because you want, so I mean, being really, really blunt and saying things over and over again is a perfectly acceptable strategy. So we can certainly do both. That sounds like I think it.
Bertha, put a chart,
Perfect.
something in the chart for, on the dates.
Saw that. Thank you. Okay.
All right.
All right, moving
Let's
on
go.
to number 2. Okay. So it's about next kind of subsection, education and monitoring of employer compliance with positive recruitment practices to learn more about whether US-based farm workers are being recruited, applying, and being hired for farm jobs. Positive recruitment, or the employer's acceptance of U.S. applicants from all sources, including SWA referrals, walk-ins, direct inquiries, etc., is required by federal rule. I don't like rule there.
The statutory requirement.
It's a regulatory requirement.
Better way.
Okay. So I guess it is federal law. Could we say that instead?
Yeah, just here. Thank you.
Law. Okay, perfect. It begins upon the SWA's acceptance of the job order and the employer's positive recruitment obligation continues until H-2A workers depart from their permanent residence. Additionally, H-2A employers are obligated to continue accepting and hiring qualified U.S. applicants between the H-2A workers' departure from their permanent residence until 50% of the contract period, also known as the 50% rule. The committee is interested in learning more about Washington H-2A employers' compliance with positive recruitment obligations, particularly whether U.S.-based former employees are actively being notified about H-2A job opportunities and/or whether farm workers employed in previous years remain in Washington state. Employment Security should provide education and technical assistance to H-2A employers to confirm they understand their positive recruitment obligations and are complying. Additionally, Employment Security should strive to discover instances in which positive recruitment is not occurring and process these violations in accordance with federal rule.
My one comment would be that changing rule to regulation might be the simplest way to make sure we're covering.
Yeah, I think that might have gotten changed by an editor kind of more well-versed in legislative reports than me, but I don't like the word rule there.
No, we'll change it back. That's perfectly fine.
So Bertha, the last paragraph of that section, it says whether former employees are actively being notified. I know at the last discussion, Mike Gempler pointed out that sometimes employers are sending out notifications, but it's going to an inactive address or, and so on. So maybe if we change it to, are they receiving notification?
Well, I think it's both, right?
Yeah, because it is both. So it's like, is it being received by them? And, whether,
yeah.
And the problem is, was the employer sending it or was the employee not receiving it?
Right, yeah, but, and then the response rate. Tracking response rates. But I don't know if that needs to be in here.
Good point. Mike, do you have, I know that this was something that you had great comments on last week. Do you have does this capture what your ideas were about the committee needing to learn more about whether employers are doing their job and whether and where employees are?
Yeah, it's hard to perfect. And I really don't know how it can be improved more, but
Yeah, I think that's the issue, is that even after you find out that they are doing it, how effective is it? Because like John just pointed out, it's like, well, we're doing everything we can, but
And the first step though is, don't jump over that. Are they doing it?
so it's doing it, and then how
Right,
effective?
then we can get, once we know that, then we can go to,
That'll be the next report. It's like, well, we found out that it's not effective. So, I mean, you might as well just put it in here and say, we need to find out if they're doing it and how effective is
right,
this.
okay. I just don't want to jump over.
I would,
Yeah, there's no subdivision on that first.
I would say it does it well enough. Thank you.
Single language.
The language is okay?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
You know, we could all tweak, like, oh, is it a passive set, you know, like.
Yeah, we
I
absolutely
think
could.
we're.
That's part of why I said.
I have not mentioned the Oxford
Moderator
comma
wanted me
once.
to.
I want you to appreciate my restraint.
I do.
So let's do this. Our lunch has finally arrived. And I know the folks that are online probably could use a break as well. So why don't we take our break, and do we want to, we can keep considering what is in front of us at this moment. We'll take our vote on this when we come back. Okay. And finish up that part of the conversation before we go into what this looks like for the next couple of years. How's that? All right.
I think it's under that.
So according to our agenda, we will come back at 1:45. We can go ahead and pause the recording and take it easy for that period of time. Excellent, thank you. All right. So thank you so much. Our recording announcements out there to remind everybody that we are being recorded and all that good stuff, but I read it at the beginning. So we are at the point where we are ready to have final discussion on the report and decide if we are in good shape as far as the content of it, the substance of it, and this committee is comfortable with it as it stands now to move forward into final editing. Okay. Is there any discussion that we want to continue to have on this?
I was just looking at.
Well, we've
I
got one.
What I was gonna say,
got
are we gonna
one
look at this
more
budget?
section.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, go ahead. If whatever I missed.
You're ready.
So this is outside of our committee recommendation. This is now into the budget section. However, there was some desire by the committee for some language regarding kind of the current state of the state's budget to be included. And so here is the agency language that was added. Impact and ongoing changes in the federal administration of the H-2A program. The current administration has shifted priorities away from program oversight and protection of worker wages to encouraging the expansion of the H-2A program, including the expansion into the dairy industry. The responsibility for oversight therefore falls more upon the state. Employment Security Department should communicate to the legislature the need for state funding to expand its capacity for oversight and MSFW outreach to meet the challenge.
So Bertha, I had a couple thoughts on that. First, they don't do anything just by the administration, it's the administration and Congress. And I would say have shifted resources away from both wage and safety enforcement. Generally, they've de-emphasized enforcement resources, not specific to the H-2A program. I don't know that they've specifically cut in, compliance resources for that program. It's been across the board. And then I would pivot separately to, at the same time, there's been, there has been encouragement to expand use of the H-2A program in the context of broader migration management, pushing folks who've been migrating otherwise into, without documentation into the H-2A program and expanding to dairy. So I didn't phrase that very well, but certainly H-2A expansion has been prioritized while those other enforcement resources have been deprioritized. Therefore, more of the monitoring responsibility falls upon the state. More sort of clarifications. And I can rewrite that for you and send it to you later if I was unclear.
You are very clear. However, that would be very helpful. So thank you. Any other edits or suggestions? We'll add John's and also develop it a little bit more to include the themes of the program as a mechanism of broader migration.
That part, I don't know. Like, that was under Biden, but do they now have that same, is there a sense of?
The administration keeps telling folks that they should use the H2A program instead of migrating illegally. And all growers get approached, you should really find more people from Honduras so they don't migrate separately, you know, those kinds of policy initiatives.
So basically, it's like, instead of having comprehensive immigration reform, you use that H2A program. Yeah. And also you cut deals with those governments from those countries, right?
I don't know about deals, but there certainly are cooperative initiatives.
Yes.
With specific governments.
So maybe one thing I put in there, maybe I should say this out loud. I hear what you shared about current administration in Congress. My recommendation would be to change that just to the federal government, because not all the changes are going through both bodies, one or the other. So instead of saying the current administration, we can just say the federal government has shifted, and that's all encompassing. Without having to say which part.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Policy doesn't move in this linear fashion.
Yeah. And we are seeing a lot of changes happening that's not ever going through Congress. That's coming through rulemaking and through various avenues. Yeah.
I mean, thank you, Linda. One of the things I wanted to say here, and I don't know, sorry, I was late going back from lunch. But that's what happens when I get really hungry and then, you know, things slow down. Yes. That because of what, you know, we were just talking about it, what John mentioned, and the whole thing's like, I believe that it's incumbent on the state to manage, like to look to invest in the local workforce in the face of all of these federal mandates, I guess you could call them. That the state needs to invest at the state level, the oversight and the protection of both the H2A workers that are coming, but also the recruitment and opportunities for the local workforce. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, the state needs to, if the federal government is going to cut funds, you know, to the state on managing the program, the state's going to have to balance it out by investing in the oversight. And also possibly passing local state legislation to balance it out. Makes sense. Something like that.
So Bertha,
Okay.
Yeah,
So kind of thinking about that, so Washington is the only state so far that has invested in post-certification, H2A integrity, kind of oversight and compliance. So is your comment, Rosalinda, that the state should continue investing?
Yes.
Or that they should, okay.
They should continue investing, and if necessary, understand that it might have to rise. You know, the cost could rise based on all of these challenges coming at us, both for the industry and the labor force. I'm just like, I don't know if I've said this before, but I've said it to a lot of people. It's like, I see that the payroll of the H2A workforce is leaving the state. So there's like a loss of revenue and investment in the state And that the workers that work here and live here, that stays in the state. And so there's an impact on the agricultural economy statewide. If something happens like the case, I mean, you go to North Carolina, it's all H-2A workers. That has to have an impact on the state budget. And somehow, and we haven't done that analysis. I feel like there's been no analysis of that.
Well, more than the state budget, local communities.
Yeah.
The
County
local
budgets,
stores,
yeah.
local, of course, how many local, I don't know, but.
They spend it at home. Workers spend the money at home. They pay rent,
Yeah, the H-2A workers send it all.
local taxes.
All back to their home country. Other than some money to buy some groceries, it all leaves.
Well, the families need it. They need every penny that they're earning here. There's families over there waiting for that.
Yeah.
It's understandable, but at the same time, the bigger the bigger the numbers of workers means it's a larger payroll leaving the state. At the same time, we're asking the state invest more in the oversight. Okay.
I think there's a bit of a misrepresentation of the history of the labor market happening here because, you know, one of the reasons that H-2A became more necessary was that migration from Mexico in particular really stopped. People weren't coming across the border to work in the United States in the same numbers. And so in the past, we've had people coming from Mexico into the US to work, but they didn't have legal authorization to do so, but they were still going back home. And that's been a big part of the workforce historically, you know, since the 70s. And that changed. And so it wasn't like everybody was just here and then worked in the town they lived in, and then were suddenly displaced by all these H-2A workers. When the H-2A program first started, so many of the H-2 workers were people who had been coming across on their own before, and then they came under on H-2A visas. And so I don't want to characterize this as a situation in which we had this flip-flop, you know, this drastic change, because we have always had migrant people, and many of them from Mexico. And that's why, you know, the population of Yakima, Washington, for example, would increase tremendously when workers would come in from somewhere else and during apple harvest or cherry harvest. So I think we need to accurately describe that.
I agree with that. And what I know of this migration, Mike, is that the workers that would come to Washington State were coming from other states, Texas being one of the major ones. So the migrant worker population was a lot of it was internal to the United States. And I know because I grew up in Holbert's labor camp, population at least 500 people during peak strawberry season, and everybody in that labor camp was either from Arizona, New Mexico, or Texas. Some from California, and they were all like majority English speakers. You know, this was in the early 60s. So I think that regardless of this history that we all grew up with and understand, the reality is what's happening now. What's happening now with the political moment, with the economy, and what's the reality that we're having to deal with now. And I think sometimes I think maybe some of us that some of this history is actually documented, some of it is not. It lives in our memories, you know, because it hasn't been documented. But if you get us older people off the table, and you bring in just the young people that are trying to get jobs, that are working in agriculture, the young farm workers, it's an economic issue, right? What are they thinking? And I think it's like our responsibility to develop an infrastructure, some kind of structure where we open it up so that what's best for our state, both economically and the food system, when we begin to look at it into a future where there's gonna be more equity for everybody. And I have to say, even protect the environment, you know, so I feel like it's incumbent on us to do that, right? To open it up into a better future. And how do we build the structure within this opportunity that we have with this bill that got passed and create something good for everybody? So
I hear what you're saying, and there's truth to it. But I think there's, you know, my experience and the experience of so many growers has been, you know, 15 years ago, Mexican immigrants, people who migrated from Mexico, stopped coming, and they'd say, I mean, I talked to people, they were like, well, I'm going back to Nayarit and I'm fishing with my dad. I've had enough of this, you know, because things were hard. That was commonplace. So there are all kinds of people who were from Mexico. So with regard specifically, not to your larger point about building a structure and all that, but specifically the point of the impact on our economy, I think it should be recognized that before the widespread usage of H2A, there were still a tremendous number of migrant people from out of the country and even from out of the state, as you say, and they wouldn't spend their money here. They'd go back to Texas and, you know, and live there. Or guys who come up from California every year for cherries, they go back, they're up here for a month, and they go back and they spend their money in California. So I just don't think that particular point was accurate, and I wanted to put that on the record. I understand what you're saying about the larger point, you know, about structure and so on, but I just wanted to get that.
Well, yeah,
Thank you.
just
yeah,
dealing with the
and
reality
this,
now.
we may not be able to address it.
Yeah.
What I think about, the history is really interesting, and I hear both
We all
sides.
have a
I just
different-
think of cities like Royal City, Mattawa, you know, and I think,
Booster.
what's gonna come of those towns? I mean, I don't know. Do you feel a difference, Dania?
I mean, for me, I see the migrant workforce has slowed down, right? Like, I mean, we're used to seeing the Texas, the California, people coming up. You don't see it as much anymore, right? So that's kind of the use of the H2A program, is the lack of the local workforce. Now in the past couple of years, you see there is a difference, right? But it's still not sufficient. We have thousands of workers, right? And a lot of other growers, everybody has a different amount of local workers that they need. So I mean, I see it at the same time. It's every year it's different. It's never the same as to the local workforce. This year it was a little bit different than last year. COVID had a huge impact on everybody. I mean, in all industries. And so I think everybody's still, you know, still recovering from all that. We're getting back to normal, things are changing. So.
And it's hard to tell at this point, given the number of disruptions that have happened over the past decade in changes in administration, COVID, this, that, the other. What is just like this craziness of disruption and what is a new normal? But I do think that making the point about investing in the recruitment of local domestic farm workers can be used for good for communities, for the economy locally in Washington State, for strengthening the entirety of our food system in the state.
In spite of what happened, I mean.
And right, in
like
spite of the
preparing ourselves.
constant disruption.
Yeah.
So
They're gonna continue.
So is that a concept that we can agree to for this part of the report?
Are we talking about within the budget cost section? Or, sorry, is Mike saying something?
I'm sorry, could you summarize that again, please?
So my point was just that regardless of the why behind the changes and the disruption, and whether it is our new normal or whether it will change to something else in the near future or such, we can as a committee make the point that investment in domestic farm workers and the recruitment of domestic farm workers can strengthen our local economies, strengthen the resilience of our small cities in the agricultural industry and the rural areas, and as such, the food system in Washington State.
I agree with that. I think that's true.
Okay.
I would add the phrasing of workforce development.
Yes, workforce
That-
development.
A lot of
Yes.
that, I think we have to bring in the upskilling conversation.
Yep.
Okay.
To that as well.
Okay.
For both farmers and farmers, you know.
Yep. Okay.
Then just one other on the budget item and costs for enforcement. I think that we might want to reference the recent JLARC report that identified some backlog in wage and hour enforcement. Generally, not just for H2A, generally, because I know that the legislature and others are going to talk about that.
Right.
And that is LNI, the LNI wage and hour that you're referring to. Is that right? Labor standards?
Yes, there was a JLARC report on LNI's in general services and enforcement around agricultural workers.
We got recovery and all that.
Yeah, and I think one of the big findings was they couldn't get to all the inquiries in the timely
We've
manner.
got people waiting 5 months right now.
Right. We talk a lot about outreach, and if it's going into a inbox that's overflowing, that's gonna continue.
Yes.
Employers will be blamed and workers will be frustrated, and no one will be able to tell what happened and get
That's
it
right.
corrected.
Everybody's mad.
So mentioning that for the purpose of highlighting that more capacity is needed in our enforcement departments. Is that right?
Yes. Investment in this, yeah.
Okay.
Brett, I'll work with you on getting those concepts in there.
Sounds good. Okay, I think that, so these are the only changes as far as the track changes included in the budget section. And then just to remind everybody, as I said at the top of the meeting, that there's going to be, obviously, the data is going to be filled in, an executive summary is going to be written, all of those things, but we just needed basically